Looks like I've let everybody in. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Matthew Watkins, and I am the chair of the Sustainability Commission, who is responsible for putting on this series of talks on home energy retrofits. I'm working off 2 computers here, so if I look like I'm looking back and forth, that is what's going on. So I want to start by acknowledging and respecting that we live, work, and play on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Synax peoples, and honor all other Indigenous peoples who walked on and cared for these lands before us and continue to do so. Tonight's talk is a product of the Sustainability Commission, as I mentioned, and specifically the Energy Task Force. The Energy Task Force is one of 4 task forces that operate under the Sustainability Commission here in Rossland. The SC is a volunteer-run organization that gets funding from the city to support and promote sustainability related initiatives from the city. If you have, like I said, this volunteer run organization, if you have any interest in any of these topics covered by these task forces, whether that's mild interest or extremely keen, we're always looking for people to help. And if you're interested, please get in touch. We can put you to work and get you working on some cool initiatives here in town. So tonight's talk is part of a series of 5 talks focused on home energy retrofits that we're doing this winter. If you missed the previous talks, you can find recordings of those on our YouTube page, as well as recordings of the 6 talks on retrofits that we did last winter. So if you have an interest in home energy retrofits, there's a lot of resources there, a lot of material that is worth checking out. Our next and last talk for this winter is going to be 2 weeks from tonight, and it is going to be live streamed online, and we're also going to have an in-person event at Miners Hall. So if you feel like coming out, please do that. We're going to be looking at some early successes and findings from the new Rossland Retrofit Assist program, which should be an interesting, interesting topic. So anybody that's been to a talk before has likely seen this pyramid. This is the energy efficiency pyramid. I talk about this pyramid a lot. This pyramid is very important in shaping home energy retrofit efforts. What this pyramid shows is basically all the different things you can do to increase the efficiency of your home, and places them in order of complexity and cost. So as you move up the pyramid, things get more complex and things cost more. Another thing that it demonstrates is that the effectiveness and efficiency of elements or actions in the pyramid are highly dependent on what was done further down the pyramid. So it's dependent on the foundation. So if this is the first talk you're coming to and you're interested in heat pumps, you can see that heat pumps are quite far up this pyramid. And if you haven't taken steps such as air sealing or done an energy audit on your home, or looked at installation and ventilation, and you're just going for straight heat pump replacements with a furnace, replacing a furnace with a heat pump, you're going to end up paying a lot more for the physical heat pump. You're going to end up paying a lot more to operate that heat pump, and the general comfort produced by that heat pump will be less than if you'd taken the time and effort to address some of these aspects further down the energy efficiency pyramid. And all of these, many of these aspects, or all of them really, we have looked at in previous talks. So yeah, you can check those out on the YouTube page. So tonight's talk is going to be put on by Sam, who is a community energy coach with Better Homes BC. And she's going to walk us through everything we need to know about heat pumps. So I'm going to throw it over to Sam here.
Thank you, Matt. I'm just going to throw on my screen share now. Perfect. Alrighty, well, good evening, everyone, and thanks for taking some time out of your evening to learn a little bit more about heat pumps. So we will dive into a good amount of information in the next hour, and do know that there's plenty of supports available. So if you are feeling overwhelmed with anything that you're learning, know that this isn't the only time that you can gather this information, and that you can follow up with informed individuals and services afterwards. The presentation is being recorded as well, so you can access it at a later date. Just keep in mind that everything that we're talking about today, so March 8th, 2023, is reflective of what rebates are available. So if you're watching, months down the road, rebates may have changed. So just make sure you're checking in on the provincial website for the most up-to-date information, and that is betterhomesbc.ca. A little bit about myself and the Community Energy Coach program. So we're specifically kind of a subset of the Clean BC Energy Coach service, which I'll introduce later on. So our program specifically is supporting communities, local governments, civic groups, industry stakeholders, to promote the Clean BC rebate programs, as well as provide education of heat pumps. So that's kind of bringing us all here today. So like I said, we do have a fairly lengthy agenda. I want to first introduce why it is that we're hearing so much about heat pumps, and then dive into a bit more about what it is, how they work, the different types of systems out there, as well as a handful of myths that we often hear about when it comes to heat pumps. I'll share a few tips with you on what to know before you buy a heat pump, including finding a contractor. And then we do have, that detailed rebate incentive section towards the end as well. So stay tuned to learn more about how that might play in for your particular home. And with that, we'll get started. So why heat pumps? Well, there's a number of different reasons why we're starting to see this more and more today. And a lot of that has to do with, seeing these impacts of climate change firsthand. In BC, we are experiencing heat waves and severe droughts and dangerous wildfires. We're all familiar with the heat dome a few summers back, and it's likely that we'll experience these events more and more, and they can even become more severe as time goes on. And these are just how we're experiencing the climate crisis and how we need to act now. So part of that is the Clean BC Roadmap to 2030. And this is a document from the provincial government that's focusing on how we can drastically reduce our greenhouse gas emissions to meet the targets that have been set out into 2030 and into 2050. One of the bigged ways to do that is by decarbonizing our buildings. So removing fossil fuel out of how we heat and cool our buildings, and as well as our hot water. And one of the best ways to do that is to shift to low carbon technology, such as heat pumps. So here in BC, buildings represent about 11% of the province's total emissions. That's a pretty decent chunk. And out of all of the buildings, out of all of our homes, I should say, here in BC, a little bit more than half of them are heated by fossil fuels. That's a good amount that's contributing to that 11% there. And by reducing that, the best way we can do that is making that shift towards heat pumps. Heat pumps are, they use electricity to function, and this is how we shift towards electrification in our homes. Here in BC, we are fortunate that our electricity is hydropower. This is considered to be carbon neutral. And heat pumps are also going to be the most energy efficient heating system available here in BC. And they are about 300% efficient. That's about 3 times more efficient than any other heating system on the market. Now, there are tons of benefits to heat pumps, and just outlining some of them here. As I've mentioned, so they are the most energy efficient heating and cooling system available. So yes, cooling, they are a 2-in-1 system. So they're able to provide you year-round comfort, heating in the winter, cooling in the summer. They'll help provide you with a climate-friendly home. Again, we're shifting away from fossil fuels, moving towards electricity. Heat pumps use electricity to function. They can also provide you with a healthier home. So heat pumps don't actually draw any air from the outside, and they also provide dehumidification and air filtration. So if you are someone who experiences lots of allergies to dust and pollen, it's a good way to clean that indoor air in your home, as well as it's a really great method of protection during wildfire smoke. If you are making that shift away from fossil fuel heating, then you also will no longer be paying carbon tax on your energy bill. So that's a nice bonus as well. And let's dive into some of these benefits in a bit more detail. So I've said a couple of times already, heat pumps are the most energy efficient heating system available, being that 300, in some cases even 400% efficient. Now that can confuse some folks. Maybe we don't really know how a heat pump works. And the genius thing about heat pumps is they're not actually generating heat the same way a gas furnace would, or even electric baseboards, but rather they're moving heat that already exists in the outside air, and they're pumping it up to a higher temperature and releasing that heat indoors. And this is why they're able to be so energy efficient, is they're not doing that heat generation, but rather collecting heat that's already there. In this example, you already have the 2 kilowatts of heat in the outside air environment. Then you use a little bit of electricity to move the system of that heat pump, pumping it up to that higher temperature, and then releasing it inside your home. Rather than fossil fuel, for example, a gas furnace is going to burn natural gas to generate heat in your home. And a natural gas furnace today, most efficient systems are about 97% efficient. So you're never quite going to get 100% with a gas furnace because of that combustion of fossil fuel. Again, heat pumps 300 to 400% efficient, so much, much more energy efficient. They're also going to be a really, really cost-effective option, especially if you're making a switch from traditional electric heating equipment. If you're using an electric furnace or electric baseboards, this can definitely be a great way to slash your energy bills. Cooling. Cooling is a big benefit for heat pumps these days. Less so maybe in Roslyn, but definitely where I am over on Vancouver Island, a lot of homes don't have air conditioning. And the heat dome was really a wake-up call for many people to learn that having cooling in your home is actually, a really strong health benefit as well. So not just those cool and comfortable nights, maybe 2 or 3 times a year, but it's really important to consider for our health when it is really, really hot in those extreme heat cases. So this is just another benefit of having a heat pump in your home, is that 2-in-1 system. And again, climate friendly. So looking at this graphic here, it really shouldn't be a surprise. Oil heating has a huge amount of greenhouse gas emissions associated to it. But even comparing to natural gas, despite its name, it still has a large amount of GHGs associated to it. Heat pumps are such a small fraction compared to that. And this is why you would have a climate-friendly home shifting towards an electric heat pump. As I mentioned, the healthier home. So if you do have loved ones in the home that have those allergies, if you have a really dusty home as well, I know if you tend to have a boiler or electric baseboards, you don't really have a lot of that air circulation in the home, which can create a lot of dust. So a heat pump is a really great option to help rid your home of dust, among other air pollutants in the home. One of the heat pump systems that I'll introduce in a couple of slides, the ductless heat pump. It's a really great zonal heating option. If you have a home that requires a couple of different temperature settings, perhaps you have some in-laws that like it really warm and you're someone who likes a cooler home, or you have an office space or a library or a gym. I don't know what your home looks like, but if you have these different spaces in your home that require a different temperature setting, there are heat pump systems that can provide that to you. They're also just really easy to use. So heat pumps use a set it and forget it practice. So essentially that means you set the system to your desired temperature setting and you leave it alone. So you're not worried about playing around with your thermostat, a couple of times a day. You really just let it be, and that's how it runs most efficiently. So you can just sit back and relax. If there are folks who are using wood heat for their primary heating, they might be getting a little bit tired of chopping wood. So this is also a great way to take a break from that and really just use that wood stove for those nice occasions and not relying on it as much for your primary heating source. And to sort of wrap up all of those benefits, quite frankly, heat pumps are the heating system of the future. We are having that shift towards electrification in the home in many, many ways. And I just really like this picture. I think it does an excellent job kind of talking about that shift towards electrification. I mean, here we can see the solar panels on their roof, the electric vehicle that they're standing in front of. Those are, we can see that, it's no surprise. But what we're not seeing in this photo is the heat pump that's heating and cooling their home year round, replacing an old oil furnace. So they've now substantially reduced their home's carbon footprint and just feeling ready for the future with that change. So how do heat pumps work? How do they work? I kind of talked about this a little bit, that they're not generating heat, but rather moving heat. And something that you guys might not even know is that you probably have a type of heat pump in your home already. Because if you haven't guessed it from this photo, your refrigerator is essentially an insulated box with a type of heat pump in it. So they work in a very similar way. So with a refrigerator, you have heat that's removed from the inside of the fridge using refrigerant lines, giving it its name. And basically it's pumped up to a higher temperature using the compressor and dumped out the back of your fridge. And then through that kind of expansion, then you have a cooling that comes back and maintains that kind of nice cool space for your food and for your drinks inside of your fridge. And that process repeats itself. And for many of us, I'm sure we probably try to avoid looking behind our fridge. I know I couldn't remember the last time I probably cleaned behind there. But if you did, you'd likely feel a lot of that warmth. So that's the refrigerant pulling that heat from the inside of your fridge and keeping that food cold. And for another kind of look on that, on how heat pumps work, and to give myself a break for just a moment, I'm going to pass things over to Dave at BC Hydro, who does a really great job at explaining how a heat pump works in your home.
Hey, it's me, Dave, and this is a heat pump. It's an energy-efficient heating and cooling system you can install at home. How does it work? Here, let me show you. Your typical air source heat pump, like this mini split system, has two main components, an indoor and an outdoor unit, which are connected by a refrigerant line. To heat your home in the winter, the outdoor unit pulls heat from the air outside your home. Yes, believe it or not, even when it's cold, outside air still contains a certain amount of heat. The warm air then goes through a refrigerant coolant that is compressed to increase the temperature even more. This warm air is then pushed through to the home. In the summer, to cool your home, the process is reversed. The heat pump absorbs the warm air in your home and transfers it outside. The compressor circulates refrigerant to the indoor evaporator coil, and the refrigerant absorbs heat as it passes over the from one place to another, which is why heat pumps are so energy efficient. In fact, a heat pump can be up to 300% more efficient than electric baseboards. So if you already have electric heat, a heat pump can help you save on your energy bill. Less energy and more savings? I like. If you're switching from a fossil fuel-based heating source like a natural gas furnace, you'll be reducing your carbon footprint. It's kind of like going from a size 18 down to a size 2. You get the idea. It's an environmentally friendly option, especially here in BC where we're powered by water. Plus, with rebates from Clean BC and BC Hydro, there's more to save.
Thank you, Dave. Alrighty. So a bit more about the different types of heat pumps that exist. I guess most commonly, there's going to be more than the ones that I'm sharing in the next few slides, but these are the ones we most commonly see here in BC. The one in the video that Dave was highlighting is called a ductless mini split heat pump, but I'll first introduce the central system, so a central ducted heat pump. This would use ductwork connected to vents throughout your home and provide whole home heating and cooling. So this is typically a great option to replace an existing gas furnace or electric furnace in the home when you already have that existing ductwork. Generally speaking, you would have a somewhat larger outdoor unit that's connected through refrigerant lines to an indoor air handler. So this would be inside your kind of mechanical room, similar So this would be a central ducted heat pump, often with a natural gas or propane furnace as a backup. So this would be a good option for backup heat on colder days when the outdoor temperature drops to a certain point. This is often determined by a heat load calculation. So this would be the heat pump contractor doing this calculation to make sure that everything's sized correctly. But it does require purchasing, two systems. You're having to make sure that you're doing maintenance on both of those as well. So something to keep in mind. And then again, we have the ductless mini split heat pump. So this is a type of heat pump that doesn't require any ductwork. So it provides heating and cooling through indoor heads or units. And they would be wall mounted. So generally about 3/4 of the way up on the wall, you'll find one in a space, and they provide zonal heating. So depending on the layout of your home, you can have several spread out throughout your home. Great option for somewhat open concept homes as well. If you're replacing electric baseboards and you don't have ductwork, a mini split is a super common retrofit option. And then you'd control the temperature basically through a remote control. And there are actually ducted mini splits as well. So mini split systems can be quite customizable to suit any given home. So this graphic here is a really great example of how you can customize these systems. So here we have an outdoor unit with 3 different refrigeration lines. The first one's going to a regular wall-mounted unit here in the kind of living room space. And then if we follow one of those, we have a ceiling air handler or ceiling cassette. So that's servicing one of the rooms here. And then this last refrigerant line is actually going to kind of a mini air handler in the attic space and serving 3 different rooms. So this you'll see quite often. Contractors like to do this with the second level of a home when there's not ductwork, depending on the type of attic that you have. It's a great way to service multiple rooms without putting an indoor head in each of those rooms. So really just kind of these customizable systems. Because of that, they come with a lot of names and they're all really just interchangeable for each other. So you have mini split, multi-split, split system, ducted mini split. They're all really referring to the same type of system. So to compare the two more broadly, so the central ducted and the ductless options. So of course, they're both providing air conditioning to the home. Whereas the ductless system, that mini split system, is the only one that will give you that proper sort of zonal heating. The central system is going to be the only one that requires ductwork. And they'll both provide air filtration and dehumidification. Keeping in mind the central system has that kind of high quality add-on for air filtration. So ideally speaking, a central ducted heat pump is great when you already have existing ductwork in the home. You're looking for kind of more effective air filtration and central whole home heating and cooling. For the ductless option, you have maybe an open concept home or replacing something like electric baseboards or a boiler. Maybe you're looking to remove older, inefficient ductwork in the basement to free up some headspace. That can be a great option for a ductless system as well. Or having, again, those different zonal heating options for a home. So among heat pumps, there's also a special type of heat pump called a cold climate heat pump. These are both central systems and ductless systems, and they're able to work efficiently down to about -30 degrees Celsius, with some maintaining over 200% efficiency at -18 degrees. And keep in mind, that's still twice as efficient as other heating systems. A fun little fact about grabbing heat from cold outside air, because that's how a heat pump works. So air at -18 degrees Celsius still contains about 85% of the heat that it contained at 21 degrees Celsius. So for a heat pump to work, for it to collect heat from the outside air, as long as that refrigerant is cooler than the outdoor air, it can capture thermal energy from that heat, from the heat in that air. And for a little bit more on cold climate systems, I do have some examples here from different places around North America. So here we have a heat pump installed in Colorado. They do tend to have some pretty chilly winters to about just shy of -30. And this is a system that is a cold climate system. They use variable speed technology, which can essentially just eliminate or reduce the need to have any type of backup because they're able to work so well. And it can be more cost effective than something like propane or oil as well. Now over here we have a really cool pilot project in the Yukon actually. And I mean, I would have been pretty shocked to think that this was something doable, but this I think speaks to how well cold climate systems work. The Yukon can get quite cold and these systems are able to work just fine, -27, -30 degree nights and days, keeping folks nice and warm. So you wouldn't see a rebate program in places if they didn't work. So just great signs to show how well heat pumps can work in these cold climates. So on the note of supplemental heating, so in extreme cold, heat pumps sometimes do need a bit of supplemental heat. This can be an all-electric option. So all-electric, the central ducted heat pumps will often have an electric backup, so essentially an electric furnace to kick in on those odd days. You can even use baseboards or a wood stove as options. And to emphasize, any home upgrades in the home when it comes to insulation and windows and doors. Matt had spoken to this right at the beginning of today's presentation. All of those upgrades will just reduce the need for supplemental heating. Just make sure it will ensure that the heat pump is just working that much better when you're not losing all of your nice warm air to the outside through, single pane windows or a leaky building envelope. On to some different myths. One that we hear a lot is that heat pumps are expensive to purchase. And while they can definitely range in cost, it's important to factor in a lot of different things when just talking about sheer numbers. So here in this example, I am comparing the installation cost of a new high efficiency gas furnace compared to that of a central ducted heat pump. So here we have quite a bit of a range. It's always going to range depending on brand, contractor, your home, where you're located as well. But generally speaking, in this scenario, we have a high efficiency furnace costing about $7,000. And a central heat pump at about 18. You might be thinking, okay, that is a fair difference there, but you also have to factor in the rebates and incentives that are available through the different programs at the moment. So if you do install a new gas furnace, Fortis does offer up to $1,000, bringing that down to about $6,000. Whereas if you do choose to install a heat pump, there are up to $8,000 available in rebates and grants, dropping that down to about $10,000, making that comparison a little bit less scary. Now you also have to look at what else a heat pump is providing to you. So you are, of course, getting that benefit of air conditioning in the home, as well as a substantial reduction on your greenhouse gases emitted in the home when compared to a gas furnace. Something else that we hear quite a bit is that heat pumps are noisy. And I'd like to say, the technology has come a long way. The heat pumps of today are not the same systems that were around 20, 30 years ago. Modern heat pumps are around 50 to 60 decibels, with even newer ultra quiet models with even lower ratings than that. And you'd be surprised to learn that a lot of household appliances are actually louder than the average heat pump. And when we are talking about heat pump noise, it's important to note that this is specifically the outdoor unit that we're talking about. The indoor units, the noise is not a concern. So again, a heat pump about 50 to 60 decibels. A dryer is going to be even louder than that, about 60 to 70. And even your toilet flushing, that can be 75 or louder. And keep in mind with decibel ratings, so something that is 50 to 60, it works on an incremental scale. So it's actually a fairly substantial jump. So 50 to 60, 60 to 70, that's going to be a big jump in noise overall as well. So heat pumps, not too noisy. The city of Vancouver actually has a really great infographic on some considerations for installing your outdoor unit, where to place it, where to maybe avoid it in relative proximity to your neighbors, as well as some just general landscaping and other considerations that you can do to block out that noise. Again, essentially, you just want to keep it away from the property line, keep it away from high travel areas as well as weather exposed areas. And if you can see it, yeah, you can usually hear it, but you can use existing barriers, fences, landscaping, or decks to really help reduce the noise from that unit. Another myth is that heat pumps need a lot of maintenance. And well, every heating system does require some type of regular maintenance. So heat pumps really no different. Generally, you're scheduling a maintenance appointment about 1 to 2 years. One of the last myths we have here is that heat pumps are expensive to operate. Now, this one is a little bit complex. Excuse all of the text on the slide here, but really in a nutshell, if you are switching from electric heat, so electric baseboards, electric furnace, to a heat pump, you will see changes in your hydro bill, likely a decrease in your hydro bill when making that switch. In comparison, if you are switching from fossil fuel to a heat pump, you will likely see an increase in your hydro bill, but this will also be offset by a decrease in your fossil fuel consumption, so you'll probably have a lower gas bill as well. By purchasing higher efficiency equipment, as well as making sure that that system's installed correctly and doing other home upgrades, this will only benefit you in the long term, making sure that those operating costs stay low. So maximum efficiency and comparable costs, really when you have a high efficiency heat pump installed that's been well installed, there's really not a huge comparison when it comes to something like a gas furnace. A couple maintenance considerations. So read the manufacturer's manual, maybe just once, and then, shove it in a drawer. They're not fun read, but it's definitely worth it. You want to make sure that you're replacing or cleaning the indoor filters, especially after a period of high dust or smoke, as well as replacing the batteries if you do have a ductless unit. Seasonally, make sure the outdoor unit is clear of any debris, leaves, snow, or dirt. If you do have a period of heavy snowfall, just make sure that that unit is clear as well. And then again, just that kind of annual, biannual maintenance appointment. And just circling back to this set it and forget it tip, I like to bring it in at this point as well, because I think it's handy to remember that the set it and forget it is the best way to operate your heat pump. Some folks do like to have a cooler space at night, turning it down a little bit compared to the daytime. So in really, really cold weather, it is really best practice to just leave it alone. It can take a little bit longer to adjust to those temperature settings when it's much, much colder outside. And a heat pump's designed to maintain a steady temperature and work gradually and efficiently. So in mild climates, you might have a bit more flexibility if you want to play around with the temperature setting. But again, in cold weather, it's best practice to just leave it be. So set it and forget it. A couple of those tips to know before you do go and buy a heat pump. Make sure you're choosing a qualified installer. I'll bring up a resource for that in a couple of slides here. But you don't want to be buying online or through wholesale, anything like that. Make sure you're obtaining multiple quotes. So there are different installers out there, lots of different brands. So make sure that you're getting a good idea of some of that variety that's out there. Addressing your home's building envelope, so your age of your windows and doors, level of insulation. If you have a very air leaky, drafty home, addressing some of these things first will only mean that that heat pump's going to work better for your home. You also want to make sure that it's sized correctly. So part of that is addressing that kind of air leakage in the home. But when it's sized correctly, that means that it's going to not be oversized or undersized, and you'll have that nice temperature in your home. And a great way to kind of understand all of those and how they influence one another would be to start with an EnerGuide home evaluation, which is also the first step at accessing any of those federal grants. So to find a contractor, there is a list of eligible or registered contractors on the provincial website. And to access any of the provincial rebates for heat pumps, you actually have to work with someone that's found on this list. So definitely a handy resource to find those that service your area. So now on to the available rebates for heat pumps. Just gonna grab some water for a second. So currently in BC, there's actually two main programs that are available. There's the provincial Clean BC Better Homes program and the federal Canada Greener Homes Grant or loan. They're kind of stackable. And you can access both of these programs together to maximize your incentives. So for heat pumps in particular, this chart is breaking down quite a bit of information, but I'll draw your attention to the two kind of bolded columns. So one here is the total estimated rebate amount you might expect if you're replacing an electric heating option. And then the other one down here is if you are replacing a fossil fuel heating option, and it varies slightly depending on the type of heat pump, whether it's a ductless heat pump or a central system. So just a bit of an overview there. But somewhere to get started to really learn what you might have available in your particular home is to start on the provincial website, so betterhomesbc.ca. Here you'll have a whole slew of resources, rebate search tools, the energy coaches. Great place to get started would be calling the energy coaches and figure out what you might have available to you. You can call them, send them an email. They're there for your support. The rebate search tool is also a great way to really just narrow down what might be available. You can filter by your project type and your location, and then you have your type of upgrades that you're interested in looking at and your home's primary heating system. And then you get your results based on that search tool, and you can click into any given page to learn more. So specifically when it comes to the provincial program and heat pump rebates, so for folks that are in the Fortis BC Electric territory, including municipal providers, if you're replacing an electric heating option, you can expect a $1,200 to $2,000 rebate for a heat pump. If you are a BC Hydro customer, the rebate amounts are a little bit different. If you are replacing fossil fuel with a heat pump, you can expect a rebate of $3,000 through the provincial program. A couple more different types here. Again, that dual fuel system also will give you a $3,000 rebate. Outside of the provincial rebates, there's also a low interest financing program. And this is a great option if you are looking for a bit more support than perhaps the rebates have available. It is an alternative to the rebates that are offered and is for folks who are replacing fossil fuel heat with a heat pump. So it's a loan of up to $40,000 and it is interest-free. So you pay that back over 5 years and work with a specific contractor who helps set you up with that loan. An additional offer through the provincial program is this special group purchase rebate. So it's a kind of a fun little offer that can give you up to $500 more in rebates. You can stack it up to those provincial offers. And basically you have it where someone starts a group and other members can join that group code. And the more people that join and participate, the larger that extra rebate is for everyone. So just kind of a fun little bonus rebate. If you are, maybe a strata and all doing heat pump installs, or a group of friends installing heat pumps around the same time. The provincial program also has an income qualified stream. So this is a separate program to their, regular rebate offers, and they have enhanced rebates. So they're designed to cover about 60 to 95% of the cost of your upgrade. They do have supports in multiple languages, and it is based on income qualifications, as you can see from the table on the slide. When it comes to heat pumps in particular, those income qualified rebates are up to $9,500 when replacing fossil fuel, or up to $5,000 when replacing electric or wood heat. And you do work with a special contractor for this one as well, because they actually deduct the rebate from the final cost of your invoice, and then you pay the difference. So this is a unique aspect of this particular program. Shifting gears to the federal offer, so this would be the Canada Greener Homes program. This program offers up to $5,000 towards all eligible upgrades, plus an additional $600 towards an EnerGuide home evaluation. The reason for that $600 is it actually is a requirement for homeowners to do both a pre and post retrofit EnerGuide home evaluation. That simply means one before you do upgrades and one once you're done with your upgrades. And the heat pump grants range anywhere from $2,500 to $5,000, or eating up kind of that whole $5,000 amount. It does need to be your primary residence if you're planning on accessing this program, and it does stack to the provincial program. Tied in with the Canada Greener Homes grant is a loan as well. So it's still relatively new, and it is up to $40,000 interest-free. Same requirements as the regular grant. So you do need to go through that EnerGuide home evaluation and apply kind of separately. There's an extra step to apply for the loan, and you would include some of your quotes for the work to get that amount saved for you. If you are accessing the provincial program and the federal program, it is recommended to start with that EnerGuide home evaluation. It, of course, is a requirement for the federal program. It's optional on the provincial side. You don't need it to access any of the provincial rebates. You do want to register with the federal program as well. They do have a homeowner portal that you'll have to get started with. And I do recommend contacting the Energy Coach service as well, and they'll be able to help kind of digest some of that information for you. Just be sure that you are taking a moment to review the program requirements. Just make sure that you are eligible for both of those programs. The eligibility is similar, but not quite exactly the same across those programs. For any of the provincial rebates, you do have 6 months to apply for any individual rebate. So best practice is to kind of apply as you go. Whereas the federal program, you actually wait till you're done with your whole process. So you start with your registration at the beginning, and then you don't actually apply until you're done. So a little bit different between those two programs, just something to note. And again, for questions at any point, there is the Energy Coach service, and then the federal program does have their specific hotline as well for more of those specific questions. And with that, I will say thank you very much for your time. And I hope you have learned a little bit more about heat pumps than you might have known maybe an hour or so ago. And I'll pass things back over to Matt and also open things up for potential questions.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sam. Good overview of heat pumps and the options and the rebates, which are always a big topic of interest. So everybody on here should be able to unmute themselves if there are any questions, or feel free to enter a question into the chat, and we can I can read those off to Sam as well. Wanted to talk about a couple things, waiting for questions, or if there aren't any questions. The last talk we did, we had a homeowner come in and talk to us about his retrofit project, and he installed heat pumps in his place. So if you want to hear from a local Roslander about their heat pump installation and operation experience, you can check out that talk on our YouTube page. Yeah, it's quite informative. He's one homeowner. There are lots of homeowners in Roslyn that are running heat pumps as well. And something else is the Retrofit Assist program that was launched by the city of Roslyn this year. They're taking applications to get into that program, and it's basically sort of a local energy coach to help walk you through the whole retrofit process, including planning, engaging contractors, applying for these rebates. So if you are interested in retrofits, including heat pumps, I'd recommend checking that out as a good resource.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely. Please do.
I've applied to the federal program, and I've had my evaluation just done today, actually. You would advise that I also apply to the provincial program at this point in time?
So with the provincial program, you don't apply for anything until you've completed your upgrades. So if you are doing heat pump or windows and doors or what have you, once you have completed that work and you get your final invoice from the contractor, it's at that point that you apply for any of those provincial rebates. So nothing quite yet on the provincial side.
And if I'm getting rebates from the feds, I can also get rebates from the provincial side as well.
Exactly right. Yeah, you can
Great.
stack them up.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, no worries.
And then just to add to that, there are Roslyn specific rebates as well. I don't believe there's a heat pump specific rebate, but there are other retrofit rebates offered through the city of Roslyn that you can also apply for.
And are those stackable as well on top of the BC ones?
Yes, I'm almost certain that they are.
Do you have a list of what's
Yeah,
available?
you can find it. If you just Google Roslyn rebates, it will come up. Yeah, on the first page.
Okay, thanks very much.
Was there another question we had here? Yeah, go ahead, Lindsay.
Yeah, thanks so much for all of this great info. I just wanted to ask a little bit more about costs. Thanks again for sharing all of those details. When you're looking at costs and without knowing anything about building, with some of this stuff, are you having to like cut holes in walls or all that kind of stuff? Like what's sort of the extent of the sort of renovation side of it, if that makes sense? And also when you're talking about costs, is that for just the purchase of the heat pump, or is that an estimate for the entire kind of process?
Yeah, great questions. To answer the cost question, so generally when we speak about costs, it would be that full cost. So for the equipment as well as the installation with the contractor. Because it's not recommended to purchase a system on your own and then hire a contractor to do it, you should likely get a kind of full cost when you're getting quotes from contractors. And the reason why we focus away from wholesale as well is because contractors actually get really comprehensive training on the brands that they work with. So if you order, some random system online and then ask contractors to install it, they're probably not familiar with it. So that's why you want to make sure that you're getting those quotes and those systems from the installers. When it comes to the specific work being done to the home in that retrofit process, It kind of depends on what you're replacing as well. So if you already have electric heat in the home, then you would be working with the heat pump installer and maybe an electrician, or the heat pump installer might have that kind of certification already. And there is a cut through the wall to fit the refrigerant lines. So that would be something that the contractor would do, and a good contractor will also make sure that they're dealing with that hole afterwards and sealing it up correctly. So that's something that you can also ask when you're receiving quotes, is how do you deal with the air sealing of the hole in the wall, and see that they have a good answer for that. If you are replacing fossil fuel equipment, then you will need someone with, in the case of a gas furnace, a permit for that. There will need to be the kind of decommissioning and removal of that component. So just kind of a couple extra permits, usually an electric permit and a gas permit in that case.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for the info.
Absolutely, no worries.
I just want to highlight the need of getting multiple quotes. So I've heard from a few homeowners in town that have gotten quotes, and there's been as much as a 200% difference between quotes from different contractors to provide the same heat pump for the same home. So yeah, it's worthwhile shopping around and seeing what they're offering.
Definitely, and building on that a little bit more as well with comparing different quotes. Look at more than just the final cost as well, because there can be a lot involved with a quote that can be easily looked over when you compare, a number that might be 10 grand in difference. There's different warranties. There's lots of different things to consider. Some companies maybe do a year warranty. Some might do 10 or 12-year warranties. Do they do free service calls in the first year? Do you have to pay for your first or second service call? There are lots of different things included in quotes, as well as their overall expertise and training in the field overall. Do they help you with rebates? So these are all just kind of prompting questions when you're getting a quote to see what's involved, than more than just, hey, here's your heat pump, goodbye.
And there's a question that came through the chat that I can read from
Sure.
Dean. Any long-term data on the impact of the TFAs exhausted from these type of units that run off refrigerants, specifically to increasing acid rain and negatively impacting ground and drinking water?
It's a loaded question. Let's take a look here. I know that I have some written up documents on that. Let me just see if I can pull it up on my computer here.
I've looked into this with regard to greenhouse gas emissions, because these refrigerants do have quite a high greenhouse effect. So if they do leak, they can be impactful. And the life cycle analysis I've seen of heat pumps versus natural gas furnaces, there's no comparison. The greenhouse gas effect of the life cycle of a heat pump, even taking into account these refrigerants, doesn't compare. But I've never looked at these other issues.
Yeah, I don't know if I have information on those specific issues either. The information that I've found here that I've pulled up, so there was a lot of concern with refrigerants with older systems. They used a lot more of a harmful refrigerant that's been mostly phased out today. So a lot of that potential leaking that Matt was just talking about, it's a lot less of a concern. When it comes to ground drinking water or acid rain, I would have to look into that. There are some articles that I can pass over to Matt if you can share with Dean as well, and just some of that maybe has more information, but I don't know firsthand.
Dean also had a question on life expectancy of a heat pump.
Yeah, it's about the same as what a gas furnace would be. So you can get, 15 to 25 years on a heat pump. I was just speaking with someone on the phone the other day that installed one in 2000 or 2001, and they said, honestly, it still works. I just kind of want a better one. And that was their response. So that was pretty cool to hear. And just like with anything, if you are taking good care of it, making sure that that outdoor unit's not getting, obliterated with debris all the time and getting nice and cleaned out, you have those other upgrades in your home, windows, insulation, air sealing, you're only going to extend the life of that system, including those servicing appointments as well. That's really important to make sure everything's running smoothly.
Nice. Any other questions or comments from the audience for Sam?
There is one in the chat, actually.
Oh, there we go.
Are there rebates to update old heat pumps? So great question. So there are grants. So the Canada Greener Homes program does offer that $5,000 grant if you are replacing an existing heat pump system. Provincially, there is not anything available if you are replacing an existing heat pump. Average warranty on a heat pump. That's a it depends question, similar to the kind of quotes and different costs of systems. It's going to depend largely on the manufacturer and the contractor. Typically, parts will have certain parts and components will have a 1-year warranty, but then the overall system will have, a 10 or 12-year warranty. And then contractors, they can offer labor warranty as well. Again, it can be maybe just a year, or some even I've seen 5 to 10 year. So that's just a question you really do need to check in with every installer when you are receiving quotes. What is the warranty? What's the warranty on the system? And what is the warranty for your labor?
All right. Well, if there's no more questions, we'll wrap things up here. Thank you very much, Sam, for coming out again and giving us this talk. Covered a lot of great information there. This presentation is being recorded, and we will make it available on the Sustainability Commission website. So if you want to check it out again or recommend it to any friends, they can find it there. Like I mentioned earlier, our next talk is going to be 2 weeks tonight, and we're going to be looking at some retrofit assist successes and early findings here in Rossland. So that should be a cool opportunity to see some local examples of different homeowners undertaking different home energy retrofit projects. So if you're looking for inspiration, that might be a good talk to attend. And with that, everybody have a good evening and enjoy the great skiing that's going on right now. Thanks again, Sam.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.